Zelensky and European leaders will pressure Trump on security guarantees. Today's newsletter also includes Citi's raid on JP Morgan's investment banking staff and Bolivia's shift to the right. Volodymyr Zelensky came to Washington for one of the most important meetings of his term as Prime Minister. The Ukrainian president will meet with Donald Trump in the Oval Office later today, with memories of the disastrous showdown between the U.S. president and his Ukrainian counterpart in February at the forefront of observers' minds. The meeting also took place less than 72 hours after Trump's Anchorage meeting with Vladimir Putin. The following statements were made at the meeting. Zelensky will be flanked by 5 European leaders, as well as the President of the European Commission and the NATO Secretary General, in a show of unity for a series of hastily arranged meetings at the White House. The European delegation will push Trump to clarify his offer of security guarantees for Ukraine. Zelensky and European leaders raced to find common ground with the United States over the weekend, after Trump scaled back his call for an immediate ceasefire following his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. Trump said on his Truth Social site last night, "Tomorrow is a big day at the White House." What's at stake for Ukrainians as Trump and Putin talk of ceding land in return for peace? While global leaders debate maps and borders, Ukrainians endure nightly drone strikes, mass displacement, and the slow destruction of their communities. On Friday, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin met in Alaska to discuss the future of Ukraine, but there was no deal reached and no big questions answered. Trump appeared deferential to the Russian leader and now backs plans to hand over Ukrainian territory as part of a peace deal. Today, he will meet with Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders. In discussions about what a peace settlement would look like, land swaps were represented as simple transactions. The fate of people appeared to be a casual afterthought. Trump and Putin are eager to embrace the idea that territory can be bought and sold like real estate. But Guardian reporting exposes the devastating part of this war: human loss. As India faces 50% tariffs, U.S. explains implications behind sanctioning China. The U.S.'s remarks on risks to sanctioning China bring focus back on criticism of India being singled out for getting additional tariffs over buying Russian oil. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has cited implications that could play out globally if a country like China is sanctioned for its oil trade with Russia. His remarks come weeks after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports for buying Russian oil. In an interview with Fox News, Rubio was asked if plans to sanction Europe for buying Russian oil were on the table. Responding to the question, the U.S. official spoke about implications to secondary sanctions and, citing China's example, said, "Let's say you were to go after the oil sales of Russian oil to China. China just refines that oil, which is sold into the global marketplace, and anyone who is buying that oil would be paying more for it, or if it doesn't exist, would have to find an alternative source for it." Marco Rubio further spoke about a Senate bill proposing to sanction countries like India and China for buying Russian oil, and said the U.S. did hear from a number of European countries regarding some concerns they may have had about it. Hamas accepts new humanitarian ceasefire proposal via Egypt. Hamas has announced its approval of a new peace plan that calls for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. This process includes the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for a group of Israeli hostages. Additionally, the plan aims to temporarily halt all hostilities and create a basis for possible resolution. This development also led to massive protests in Israel. An estimated 400,000 people took to the streets, demanding an end to the war and the release of hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reacted harshly to these demonstrations, claiming that the protests strengthened Hamas. In addition, the UK and Egypt are planning to take significant steps to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. The establishment of an international peacekeeping force under UN authority is also among the concrete initiatives on the agenda.